I'm more of a lazy jiu-jitsu guy, not really like a wrestle-up jiu-jitsu guy. So I tend to not. I don't like bridging escapes too much, but I think it was because I didn't learn them wrong. I interpreted them wrong when I learned it, and I think a lot of people learn them wrong. Okay, bridging is very specific in all your angles and everything. You have a specific job to do when you bridge. Your job is to not move your partner's base, and this is the most important thing about bridging. If Paul is here like in his turtle, I'm going to show you guys this first, so hopefully we can avoid having to show it later. If Paul's here in his turtle, and I'm bridging into him, let's say he's on top of me. If I push towards like his center of mass, he's very heavy here because he has his knee on the other side of his base, right? He's super heavy. I can't move him very well. It takes a lot of muscle for me to move him, right? But if I go up at an angle and go towards his head, right? If his body was a lever, his base is here, this is the end of the lever. If I push towards his head, I can move him a lot, right? But if I push here, I don't move him very much at all, okay? But if I move his head, I can move him a lot. And I want you guys to keep that in mind as we're going through this, because that little concept there was the one thing that took me until like brown belt to figure out. I could never get bridges to really work like for me. That's why I learned how to adapt without them. But it wasn't until like for a long time I didn't really understand that entire concept there. So this could be really beneficial for you guys. So for the next two that we're gonna do, and even for those last ones, they all follow the same rule. I don't want to push Paul where his base is. I want to push close to his head, okay? Bridge close to his head. So what we're gonna do for this next one, sometimes you can't get your arm in front of their head to do like our first escape, right? So what I'm gonna do is shoot for my underhook, okay? I keep my elbow down tight to the body. I try to get under the armpit. If I have to, I'm gonna bump, make some space, and get my elbow in. I generally like to keep my elbow just a tiny bit exposed in the front at the beginning, right? But not enough that he can use it as a lever. Right? He can't really use it against me right now to pin my shoulder down, right? I keep my palm turned away so my elbow stays flared open, and I'm strong here. I don't like to go through too deep, because the moment you go through too deep, you start to turn, and the person almost all the time is gonna whizzer and start to work for leg darces and stuff, right? You're basically giving them an opportunity to start at least repositioning you, which is bad. But here I'm pretty safe, and he can't put me on my side very well from this position, right? So my elbow's just a tiny bit exposed, right? But it's safe, all right? So what we're gonna do, the first thing I want you guys to do, and this is a really good habit to get into anytime you're in side control, is to sink away, all right? And what I mean is I'm gonna use my heels and my feet to pull my head in under him as far as possible. So I can use my arms to push a little bit, but I wanna sink under him as much as possible. Even if they're holding you real tight, giving you tons of pressure, if I stay up here, his pressure is gonna be right on my neck, where I could potentially go to sleep, and it's really uncomfortable. There's nowhere I could put my head to relieve that pressure, okay? But if I turn my head and sink down, now those pressure is gonna be on my chin, or my cheek, or my jaw, sorry. My jaw, and it keeps my head turned, which is good for him because I can't look that way. But it's good for me because it's not where I don't want it. But what happens is it exposes more of my arm on this underside, and this is really important. So what I'm gonna do now, it doesn't really matter necessarily how close or how far I am on this first one. It might actually be better to be a little bit closer to him. But what I'm gonna do is bridge, okay? But I'm gonna bridge and I'm gonna try to turn his head. So I'm basically gonna reach my arm straight up over my head, and I'm gonna reach, okay? I'm always reaching, I'm never grabbing, I'm always reaching. So as I bridge, I'm going up and I'm reaching and turning him, right? You see that his knees didn't move at all. His body didn't move at all. Just his upper body moved, because that's where he's light, right? If I can steer him out of the way, that gives me the opportunity to, my bottom elbow's already tucked in so I can pull it under. I can just shift my arm from being up here to down, come up on his leg, and now I'm on a perfect single leg. I can trap his leg, pull it under him, and just basically go from side control into a single leg. Now you're not gonna score points for that because it's a reversal if you go from the bottom to the top without a guard. So you're not gonna get any points for that, but I mean, you're going from the bottom to the top, it's great. So I can work for my underhook, right? I don't want my arm too exposed because you can use it as a lever, which is really bad for me. So I just want it just tucked in so my elbow is exposed, but if he tries to like use it, he can't, it just slips right off, okay? That's really strong for me. But he also can't whizzer it because he can only whizzer my forearm at this point, okay? So it's very strong. So once I get here, my right elbow is always tucked in. Try not to keep this elbow exposed. Because remember, all these side control escapes, I have to bury this elbow going. I have to pull this elbow under me in order to turn, right? So I sink away, right? And then right away, I bridge, but I turn his upper body. So I'm trying to cut across, up over his head, right? Not through his back. So I go up, I steer his upper body right over his head. I want to like be able to look and see my hand behind his head, right? And as I'm still bridging, I can step under, turn, come up on the single leg. I can grab his hips, convert it to more like a double leg, blast, take him over, and come to the top. So the angles are super important here. If you're in this position, right, and you've sunk away and everything's great, and then you blast into their hips, you're gonna hit a brick wall. They're not gonna go anywhere, you're gonna tweak your back, you're gonna lose a lot of energy, and you're just not gonna go anywhere, okay? If I bridge into his body here, he's gonna be able to push back against me, which is why everybody bridges wrong, because everyone tries to bridge into the person's like side. You have to bridge into their head, okay? So I sink away, I'm on my toes, I go up, come up to my knees, and convert. Worst case scenario, he stays on his knees, maybe he whizzers, hey look, I'm out of side control. Sit back to my guard, and I'm happy. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay, does anybody need to see it from a different angle or anything? Everybody's good? Let's do it. 1, 2, 3. All right. So yeah, just a stupid little backstory. I hate doing this kind of thing, but Michelle and I went to a seminar when we were blue belts, and we learned this concept from Coyotero, who's like 100, he was a rooster weight at the time, like 125 pounds, like 9-time world champion in the gi and like 6-time in no gi. Like, the guy's amazing. But he would do absolutes and do really well and stuff. But when we were there, he had like pretty much everybody in the room try to hold him down in side control. Nobody could hold him down because he understood this concept of the angles and all that. And I learned this stuff at blue belt, but it really didn't click until like years and years later. So I'm glad you guys are getting this stuff early, because this took me like 6 years to figure out. It's tiny little details that make all the difference in the world, right? So we're gonna use the exact same concept, just in reverse, with our arms reversed, okay? So what I'm gonna do is take my right arm here. Normally I want this one wedged in really close. And remember, if you're doing that first one, you have to have this arm in, because you have to tuck this arm under you in order to come up to your knees, right? If you're not tucking that arm under you, if you're holding onto their belt or something, you're making your life a lot harder, right? Anyway, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this arm, instead of being on this hip over here, I'm gonna switch it to the far hip, okay? Now we have to be careful in this position, because we just did bread cutter chokes recently. When you stick your arm under, if people reach underneath your arm, you're putting yourself in a huge disadvantage, right? A very, very difficult choke to escape. So as I'm putting my arm here, I'm also gonna be trapping his arm. And I'm not like grabbing it really tight. Don't focus on grabbing this, because I don't wanna hold it once I start my escape, okay? But for right now, I wanna hold it because I don't wanna let him put his arm back there, right? So once I put my hand on his hip, I can't let him put this arm to my other hip, okay? It kills my escape, and it's gonna probably get me submitted. So I'm gonna do the same thing I just did. I'm gonna use this arm, right? And maybe this arm a little bit to help me sink away. And as I sink, I like to try and turn my hips out just a little bit, right? If you go too far, people are gonna change their position, and it's not really gonna work very well. So just sink away and turn just a little bit, okay? I'm just opening my elbow, right? And this elbow being open is gonna stop him from being able to close that gap. So if he tries to like circle and follow me, like I can kind of just keep my distance, right? This will still work if you're like at a 90-degree angle, and it'll still work if you're way further, but the further I get, you're just gonna switch sides to the other side, right? If he's smart, right? Especially someone that's had this escape under them, you're gonna know exactly what you're doing, right? But once I get here, I sink away, I get my head under, right? And I'm gonna do the same concept, right? I'm gonna let go of this arm, and I'm gonna swing my arm, and I'm gonna blast it up, but I have to go over his head. I have to go under his armpit and over his head. And the reason I'm sinking away, not just because it makes the escape easier, but because I don't want my arm to bend, okay? I don't want to hit him with the bent part of my arm. I want to hit him with my bicep and my shoulder, okay? Just like the last escape. So I'm sinking away to expose my arm more, to make my escape more effective. So I bridge, and I swing my arm up under his armpit. I let go of this arm, and again, I'm reaching past his head as far as I can until I get up to my knees. I don't want to stop and grab him until I'm all the way up to my knees. So I swing my arm, I blast, I pull my other arm out, I keep going until I can get to the top, okay? There is a way to convert this to like Darce chokes and stuff like that, and it's really slick. I don't recommend doing it in the gi, and I don't recommend doing it until you're really good at the escape. Maybe one day we'll work on that kind of thing. It's really slick, but I want you guys to work on getting here so you can sprawl on the person's back, and then from here, I can get back to the side where I can start attacking clock chokes, taking it back and stuff like that. Maybe you can work a front headlock or a guillotine or something from the front, that's fine too. Just remember, the longer you stay here in this position, the more risk you have of them grabbing your knee and then converting their own single leg and putting you right back inside control, which sucks. So typically when I get to that position, I don't fight for headlocks. I go right to the back. A lot safer. My wrestling sucks. Maybe you guys are better than me, but I know my limitations. So I trap this arm, switch sides, sink down, right? Pull myself out just a little bit of an angle. Try not to hold this because it makes your escape harder. There's things you can do if you keep holding it that are pretty cool, but for now, just to learn the escape, just kind of loosen up your grip. So I bring my arm to the other side, and then I blast as I extend past his head. If you hit the person here, it's not going to work. He's strong there, you've got base on that side. I'm turning his upper body, I'm not moving his base, right? Get up to the top and start working your attacks. One more time. So this is probably the worst angle. Trap the arm, other arm goes through, sink, make a little bit of an angle, switch your arm first, blast. Your bicep and shoulder are gonna go right into the armpit, reaching up over the head as far as you can. Don't stop until you get to the top. Any questions on that? Let's do it. 1, 2, 3. So I kind of lied to you guys. We're not doing the exact same thing, just with different arms. There is a difference. If Paul's on this side and I have my underhook, right? Because the angle is so much different, for me to go over his head, and like when I'm bridging and reaching, I'm reaching up over my head, right? So when I bridge here, I'm reaching up over my head to steer him, okay? If I'm doing this other escape, and I'm here, and I reach up over my head, I'm going right in the middle of his back, okay? So this one, we're not going over our head. This one, I'm going over his head. That's like the kind of thing I want you guys to understand. You're always going over his head, not your head. So when I bridge from here, I'm not doing the same thing. I'm not going here. I'm going here, right? If this arm gets stuck here, that's fine. Some of you guys are experimenting with holding the arm. I promise you there's awesome, cool stuff we can do with this, but I want you guys to focus on the rotation and getting out. Escaping side control and being really good at it and being hard to hold down is more important than like having submissions necessarily that chain to it right away. Because if I keep doing stuff like this, like I bury myself because I'm holding this, I can't rotate my shoulder. And actually that happened this morning to Julio. He tried to do this exact escape and he was hugging the arm and did this, and you took his back. 6-month white belt. It was embarrassing. I almost slipped my wrist this morning when I saw that. But it was because you held the arm, right?
It felt right.
It felt right.
Felt right.
It does feel right. It feels natural, right?
Yeah.
It'll get you in trouble, right? I want to escape this arm. I'm always trying to escape whatever's trapped. It's trapped right now. This is bad for me. As I go, I'm trying to get away. I'm trying to take it away from him because I don't want him to hold it. Once I get here, now maybe I can reach through, start working like anacondas, come back through, start working Darces, or whatever. But don't worry so much about that stuff during the escape. Focus on the escape. Good stuff will come after you escape, right? Don't get ahead of yourself. Now the last thing, which I completely forgot what I was going to say. Oh, is this. I don't want you guys to develop bad habits. Every time we're drilling this stuff, we're starting like this. Don't ever do this. Never be here. Never in your jiu-jitsu career ever be in this position on the bottom. You should. I don't ever want to see anyone here. I don't ever want to see anyone here. If you do this, I'll kick you out of the gym. Don't ever do this, right? When you're here, right? If Paul and I are drilling side control escapes, I'm here every time. I build my frames before he gets on, okay? I don't want you guys developing bad habits. If Paul's passing my guard, knee slide pass or something, my arms are on the inside. I'm already framing, I'm already keeping myself safe. I'm protecting my box from the inside out, okay? If my arms are outside, I can't protect my box with them. My legs are out of the picture. My arm's job is to protect my legs, okay? So if he's passing my legs, my arms should be actively working to defend my legs. So if he's passing, I'm using my arms to keep my legs back in front, okay? You should never be here, ever in your jiu-jitsu career. Unless you're in combat jiu-jitsu and he's trying to punch you in the face. Then maybe I want to be here for a split second, right? That's the only time, right? We don't do that here. There's no elbows, there's no punches. So just don't do it, okay? All right. Excellent job tonight, everyone. If you guys have any questions, let me know. Halloween party on the 30th. There's flyers around the gym. I think we have an event for it and stuff like that. But hope to see you guys there. All right.